Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Richard. Today I'm going to respond to songs from the West Coast contest, the Pete's contest called Laying the Foundation. That's to celebrate him having 200 subscribers, so congrats on 200 subscribers, Pete. I really enjoy your videos, and I think we have some similar taste in music, and I'm picking up some new tips from you on music I need to check out, which I really appreciate. So Pete's contest is to show 9 kind of foundational albums, and also talk about a book or magazine or a person that really has guided you on the path to the music you like today. I did uh, have a few comments back and forth with Pete on his video announcing the contest, and he gave me the okay that I can also show some CDs. My vinyl collection does not really have the breadth yet to get into all the foundational stuff. And I'm gonna, well, this goes some years back. Not everything goes back to my youth. I am definitely not going back to early 80s hair bands, which I once upon a time listened to, and not really anymore. Uh, Progressive rock is really my first love today in music, if you will. Also classical and jazz fusion. Um, I don't have a lot of classical albums I'll show, and I want to stick to something a little bit more hard format. I do have some huge folders with CDs um, where I no longer have the covers, unfortunately. Somewhat of a forced storage solution as I moved from one side of the Atlantic to the other many years ago. Uh, so I'll show a little bit of a mix of each. I will start with some very obvious, maybe not surprising music, knowing that I'm in the progressive rock world, but this is Crimson, Starless, and Bible Black. Um, this particular copy I have not owned for too long. This is the Steve Wilson remaster. Sounds really great. Has a very high quality remasters. I certainly think, from what I've heard, that Steve Wilson's remasters of older albums produces some really great sound. Um, but I have owned this music on CD long before that, and it's probably one of the, and what I think of maybe as a little bit more um, harder or hardcore progressive rock albums that I've owned the longest. I seem to remember some early 2000s era listening in the car one time on a road trip with a friend of mine who probably did not quite appreciate the music as much as I did. One of my favorite tracks on this album, and one of my favorite Crimson ones overall, is Fractured. This has the studio version of that. I'm sure many of you prog rock fans know that Fractured, um, really a technically difficult guitar piece, as I understand it. I would never even come close. But you see, I have some guitars behind me. I don't think I will get there. I started way too late in life. Even Robert Fripp, I've heard or read, spends 3/4 a year to practice up to play Fracture live. By the way, I do probably think the live versions can be a bit better sounding than the one on the studio album, but nothing wrong with what's on the studio album. I will also, that's kind of a part two to that, or part 1B, maybe I should say. I'll also show this one. This is also a Steven Wilson remaster of In the Court of the Crimson King. Um, Great album. Um, Certainly some early prog sounds that will be with me until I lose interest in music at some point. But great stuff. really come, that taste come from my dad, who, by the way, is turning 70 here, just in, well, this week actually, and I don't normally spend money on this kind of stuff. For actually, this would be the only time I have done it, and maybe the only time I do it, since I am not able to travel across a few national borders to say happy birthday and be with him for his 70th. We bought him a birthday greeting from Robert Fripp, so we'll see if he likes that. Then, changing pace a little bit, I showed this one before, Frank Zappa, Chunga's Revenge. This is a more recent release. I think it might be a few years old, but a remaster by Bernie Grundman, who I guess is a well-known name in audiophile remasters for LPs. This one is not an audiophile price album, if you will, very reasonable price. I did have this on CD, probably at least the first Zappa studio album that I had. I think my first ever Zappa album was probably Strictly from Commercial, which is compilation album, if you will. I think all studio recordings. Zappa music, I still listen to Zappa music, particularly Shut Up and Play Your Guitar is one of my favorites, and particularly if I need to cool my jets a bit, Pink Napkins on Shut Up and Play Your Guitar I really enjoy. I also listen to other Zappa inspired bands, maybe more on the avant-garde side of it, instrumental rock side of it, like Panzer Papa or Panzer Papa, Norwegian avant jazz prog rock type band. Do check them out if you like if you like some of the more instrumental sides of Zappa. They do have a few vocal hits as well. On one of Panzer Papa's albums, they did have Richard Sinclair of British Canterbury prog rock fame sing one of the tracks. Mahavishnu Orchestra, Birds of Fire. I must really like this one because all of a sudden I had 3 copies of this album, two CDs, and I got hold of a used LP. Unfortunately, the cover on this one isn't the greatest, but the LP is nice. I think I misplaced my one copy many years ago, and it showed up years later. Silly thing, but sometimes if I have received a gift or something, a car copy for when streaming music in cars and such were not all that doable. I still have a couple of bands that I have some car copy CDs of, if you will, or I retain an extra I may have been gifted. I listen to a lot of Mahavishnu Orchestra. I have several CDs. I don't think I have quite everything. I also listen to a lot of John McLaughlin's solo work, including some of the jazzier stuff and some of the older fusion type stuff, like the Electrical Guitarist. I still kind of bummed out that I, on account of work, did not get to go to what might have been one of his last U.S. concerts. And then with Pete's permission, I will dip into some CDs just to kind of stay with the foundational topic here. Next one, Tubular Bells, Mike Oldfield. Wow, can you imagine a better debut album by someone? Well, he was 21, I think, when the album was released, but even 2, 3, 4 years younger than that, I think, when he recorded it. Listen a lot to this, not necessarily this particular copy. I borrowed my dad's copy for quite a bit when I still lived with my parents. I also have a lot of other Mike Oldfield albums. I don't listen too much to Michael Phil at present, but I think he still has um, really flavored a lot of my taste in music, and I still do go for it on occasion. Um, More so the instrumental works than some of the '80s hits, if you will, like Moonlight Shadow or was it Get to France, and some of those kinds of music I don't revisit too much. Amadon is probably one of the ones I reach for the most right now for Michael Field. Um, but I still, um, I think he gave me the flavor for the longer format, longer listen. Um, Amarok probably being the prime example of that. A early '90s album, I believe, with just one track that's about an hour long. Um, it's been a good while since I've listened through it all, but I could still picture the Margaret Thatcher laugh that it ends on. I'm not sure if that's the real voice or someone that was just good at emulating her voice. But um, I remember the guy in the record store when I bought Amarok said, "Well, be careful. It's just one track. You may not like it, but I can sit an hour and listen to the music if I have the time." It's changing over to something that has been with me for a long time. Um, and I'll also do kind of a double header here. Pink Floyd. This is the Pulse live album from the mid-90s. This is the recent remaster of Delicate Songs of Thunder live album. This also comes with this edition comes with the Blu-ray or DVD video footage as well. Great song on this one. From what I've read from reviews, I've listened to some of it myself. I've not had time to really dive into it super deep yet. Pulse, though, has a bit of a special place in my heart in that I did get to see Pink Floyd in Oslo in 1994, their second concert there in the big sports arena. Great experience. Also, for someone that's 19 years old, you can't really complain when your dad buys you the ticket. Him and two of his friends gave me the gas money, paid for my food, and the only thing I had to do was to drive everybody to Oslo. They could have a beer or two, and I drove back, being the designated driver. So I made money going to Pink Floyd concert, and I'm a huge Pink Floyd fan. Astronomy Domine still really sticks in my mind from that concert. Really blew me away. And of course, the Flying Pigs on either side of the stage. Something from fairly early in my life that I listened to a lot to, Jean-Michel Jarre. This is a Live in Hong Kong album. I don't listen to Jean-Michel too much more anymore, but I spent a fair amount of time listening to him over my life. Particularly Oxygen 1 and 2, I believe, both of them. Magnetic Fields, Equinox, Rendezvous, and this Hong Kong album. Also remember watching the Houston concert on TV. I still think, even though I don't listen to him a lot right now, I think he also helped certainly expand my mind to more electronic forms of music. Now that kind of music is more valid. I think some of you may have seen I got some of the Kraftwerk re-releases that came out last year. Klaus Schultz is someone I've spent some time listening to, and also other more electronic type music that I'm still exploring more. This is Gentle Giant in a Glass House. Probably maybe the first or second first Gentle Giant album that I got in any sort of a format. I really do like Gentle Giant a lot. Um, I think perhaps the one of the live albums. I forget the name right now. Sorry. Anyways, some perhaps the best to me, but I do like their studio albums as well. If you haven't checked it out and you like Gentle Giant, I highly recommend you check out their YouTube channel and listen to the fan version of Proclamation. And some of the fans are some pretty high power fans, like Jacob Jaksic, the latest vocalist in King Crimson. He also recently released his own album late last year. And Rachel Flowers, I remember being there. She's a young, very talented musician, keyboards, guitars, bass guitar. Check out her Keith Emerson two tunes or ELP tunes that she's collaborated on and played herself online. Keith Emerson even borrowed his modular Moog at one point, and she just plays up a storm. Great. Also, she has a very killer version of Zombie Wolf on her YouTube channel. She plays all the instrument and does the vocals herself. She also can break into some Gentle Giant tunes. I haven't found a really good sound quality on that online, but still fun to listen to. She's so talented. She very recently also released a track called AB on her Bandcamp site. And AB is a nod to Adrian Belew from King Crimson, Zappa, Bowie, solo career, and I'm forgetting stuff, but a great track. If you are on Bandcamp, check out her page and listen to the AB track. I played it many times. I've even bought it so I can add it to my just file digital high resolution collection. Finally, just maybe something maybe more typical for my age, if you will. Nirvana, Unplugged in New York. Not a humongous Nirvana fan necessarily. I do have Nevermind and then this album, but I think this live album is just great. It's just such a great sound on it. I do like the Nirvana tunes in it. Also, really enjoy the cover version of A Man Who Sold the World that they have here. So those are the albums I thought I'd show. As for other influences, I thought I'd say it got to be my dad, who is a big progressive rock fan, and some other types of music too. But that he's also really chiefly a progressive rock a fan when it comes to music listening, and we share some notes, and I borrowed CDs from him. Certainly in my youth when I lived at home, it was very okay in our house that I played loud music at times. The punishment was that so did my dad. Every now and then, he'd often have some friends over on a Friday night, and they'd play some old music, and they had their own rating system, and a little bit of a guessing game as to what music they played, etc. So, and as I've mentioned a few times here, he introduced me to most of these, if not all of these bands, really. Probably the one album I should have added to the mix here, if it went to a 10th, would be Jethro Tull's Aqualung, which was something I started listening to pretty early on too, as I got my first somewhat more serious stereo system, if you can call it that. I got in my mid-teens, so that's my entry. Perhaps this went a little longer than I expected. This was my second take, or maybe more than my second take. and struggle keeping it under 20 some minutes. This will just be about 20. Anyways, Pete, I appreciate the contest entry and the encouragement, or the contest, and encouraging me to enter. I hope you enjoy the video, everyone. We'll see you in the later video, I hope. Thank you.